Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our program. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jase Bernhardt, who is the Assistant Professor in the Department of Geology, Environment, and Sustainability at Hofstra University. He will be presenting today on rip currents and the dangers and improving communication. Take it away, Professor.
Great, thank you for having me, and thanks for joining everyone. As mentioned today, I'll be speaking about rip currents for a little while, and also since it is quite timely, I'll be discussing the tropical storm that is coming in to Long Island for tonight and tomorrow. And if you're watching this as a recording later on, we'll be talking a bit about some of the important impacts of tropical systems when they hit Long Island. So it'll be instructional no matter when you're watching this. But first, let's talk a bit about rip currents. First, what is a rip current? A rip current is a strong current of water that can rapidly pull swimmers away from the shore with little or no warning. That's sort of the textbook definition. Let's dig into this a little bit and make it understandable. And by the way, if you're here live and have any questions, feel free to type in the chat or come off mute, and I'll be happy to try and answer them. So rip currents occur in bodies of water that have tides. So obviously the South Shore of Long Island being on the Atlantic Ocean, you get rip currents. The North Shore gets some as well with the Long Island Sound is tidal. Even, for example, the Great Lakes in the middle of the US, they're large enough to have tides, so they have rip currents. So any large body of water essentially is going to have rip currents. And rip currents are just strong flows of water that are going to take swimmers from near the beach, from near the shore, and pull them out to sea, away from the shore. And oftentimes they do it without much warning. Important to note that rip currents don't pull swimmers under directly. That's called an undertow, and that's even less common. So rip currents don't drown people, but they can indirectly lead to issues for folks and sometimes lead to injuries and fatalities. And that's because they can cause people to panic. Think about it, you're swimming in the ocean and all of a sudden you start drifting out to sea away from the beach and you start panicking. It's very reasonable, understandable reaction to have. But unfortunately, that can cause people to panic and try to fight the rip current, and that's when people can get into trouble. So again, rip current is a flow of water. It's going to drag people generally away from the shore line, and it's not going to pull you under, but it is going to be often very quickly pulling you in a certain direction, generally straight out into the sea, away from the shore, from the beach. And sort of the why do rip currents form? They often form, if you've ever seen a sandbar before, that sort of patch of dry sand, a patch of land sticking up out in the ocean. What happens is the waves go up to the shore, and then sort of, as you've seen before, ever been to the beach, the waves come in and then they push back out, they pull back out. And they sort of equally sort of go out at the same speed. But what can happen is as that water starts going back out to sea from those waves that hit the beach and come back in, as you've seen the animation here, if there's a sandbar, sometimes the sandbar is above the sea level and you see it. Sometimes those sandbars can be just underground, but still it's sort of higher elevation of the ocean floor than the surrounding area. That narrow sort of area can allow the water to accelerate through. If you can trick the flow of a fluid, if you can trick the flow of water, it goes more quickly. For example, if you ever sprayed a garden hose before and cover it with your thumb partially, you notice how it goes out more strongly. Same thing here. The water coming back out to sea after the waves have broken on the beach is usually going out pretty slowly. But if it's a sandbar, it gets forced through that narrow gap in the sandbar, and it's going to start going quite quickly out to sea. And then that's going to form your rip current. Rip currents will be pulling you out with all of a sudden a very strong flow of water out to sea, perpendicular at a 90-degree angle to the beach, taking you out. And in the photo on the left, it's actually where you don't see the white caps on the waves. That's the rip current. Rip current, instead of having the big waves driving things, the rip current's actually sort of pulling out to sea, so you don't see as high up waves. So if you're up of some elevation, you can usually spot a rip current by looking for sort of gaps in the waves. As you see on the left here, then what's going on under the water on the right is, again, the water below the surface of the ocean getting accelerated through that gap in the sandbars, and therefore dragging things out and dragging people out if they get caught in it. And this shows that once you get past the sandbar, which is always fairly close to the shore. The rip current weakens because there's not that acceleration force anymore. So the rip current's always going to sort of weaken and really go away, not too far out to sea. So that's an important thing to know with a rip current. If you do get caught in one, you never want to panic. Because if you panic and start fighting it, that's when danger can happen. The biggest issue is people start panicking. Oh no, I'm being pulled out to shore away from shore by this rip current. To try to fight it and swim back directly towards shore. The problem is, of course, that rip currents are very fast. They're faster than any Olympic swimmer even. So no human can fight a rip current and win in terms of trying to fight it and make progress going back to shore. So what happens is people fight it and they don't make any progress and they panic further, and or they start getting fatigued, especially if you're not as experienced a swimmer. If you start fighting the rip current and not make any progress, you're gonna get tired and you're not going anywhere. And that's when people can get into trouble when they start running out of energy. So then this shows us, okay, what do you do in a rip current? The easiest thing to do is just let it take you. It will take you out, but not too far, and then sort of deposit you here. Then you can swim back safely. So if you're not a very good swimmer, not having swimming abilities, all you should do is just wait for help when you get caught in a rip current. And a lifeguard should come and rescue. That's why you should always swim on a guarded beach with lifeguards. Because if you're swimming alone, no lifeguard, yeah, then it is more dangerous. But if you get caught in a rip current, if you're on a guarded beach, you just wait for help, don't panic, and a lifeguard will come out and rescue you. They're trained to deal with rip currents. They specifically go to the beach when there's strong rip currents for their training days, and then make sure they know how to swim through them properly and rescue people. If you are a confident swimmer, notice how rip current is very narrow. This dark blue is rip current. It's just a very narrow flow of water getting accelerated through the gap of the sandbar. So you can very easily swim out of it. It might only be, 50 feet or something, maybe less. So very short distance. So what you want to do is look at shore and then just swim parallel to it. If you swim parallel to shore, if you're in the dark blue here, swim parallel to shore, either direction doesn't matter. Just with a little bit of swimming, you're out of the rip current. Then you can swim back to shore unimpeded because there's no more rip current. Then the waves will help get you back into shore. It'll be easier. So there's really just two possible things to do in a rip current. One, just let it take you. It's going to stop eventually and wait for help. And someone will come rescue you. And again, the lifeguard is trained to swim parallel to shore. So they'd come out and help swim you, away from the rip current and then back in. Or if you're somewhat good swimmer, just swim parallel to shore. Then you'll easily get out of this dark blue rip current. And then you can swim to shore, back to shore for safety. Sounds easy, right? But unfortunately, not many people know about rip currents. Or some people aren't very good swimmers, or most importantly, people swim at guarded beaches. So unfortunately, they swim like off hours at the beaches. We're really not supposed to. So unfortunately, every year there's several rip current deaths around Long Island. These are totally preventable. For example, 2019 in the Rockaways, there was a fatality. 2020, there were even more fatalities, maybe because more people are going to the beach. With the pandemic, there weren't that many things to do indoors, so people were doing more things outdoors. So look at, unfortunately, all these beaches: Rockaway Beach, Long Beach, Jones Beach, beaches out in Suffolk County and the Hamptons, all had rip current fatalities, simply because people don't know what a rip current is, they don't know what to do, and they panic and they do the wrong thing. So again, it is very easy. Rip current's not going to drown you itself. It's nothing to be scared of, but you do need to know what to do to get to safety. Again, either let it take you and wait for help, or swim parallel to shore, and then once you're out of the current, go back in. But if you don't, it can turn deadly. And obviously, fortunately, this is a very low number of fatalities, a few people. So all the people going to the beach, obviously, it's very minimal, but this should be zero. That's the first thing. The second thing is there was many, every busy day at the beach when there's rip currents, there's many rescues at each beach. And obviously, you want to avoid having to be in a situation for rescue. Because even if you come out okay physically, that can be mentally very traumatic and emotional, either for you directly or like if you're a parent and you have a child, imagine just seeing the lifeguard have to go in and rescue them. So, or a relative, whatever, grandchild, whatever. So the point is, no matter what, you want to know what to do in rip currents, because you don't want to get caught in one. You don't want to have a rescue. Even if you are totally fine, it still can be a bad situation to be in. So the National Weather Service, which puts out, for example, rip current warnings and advisories, has a really nice graph that they put on what to do in a rip current. I think it encapsulates everything. Here's a definition down here that pull you away from shore. But what if you do get caught in one, you just relax, they don't pull you under. Don't fight it, because that's how you can get tired and then maybe get in trouble. And again, the two options are: one, just let it take you and wait for help and lifeguard will rescue you. It's not going to drown you. Or two, just swim a little bit parallel to shore, a little bit to the left or right. Then you'll get out of the rip current channel, and then you can just swim back to shore yourself and not have to worry. Again, pretty easy, but we always want to make sure people know this. Even if you don't go to your beach yourself, you should let friends and family that do go to the beach know about this. Ask them, make sure they know about rip currents. Also, another good thing to do is when you go to the beach, there's going to be flags up. If you're not sure what the flag symbols mean, they can be confusing. Talk to the lifeguard. The most time when you see like the red flags, it's because of rip currents. So you might also want to go talk to the lifeguard, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, we've already had to pull 6 people out today because of rip currents, rescue 6 people because of rip currents. Or it's not so bad, be careful, but it shouldn't be rip currents. So when you go to the beach, if you're not sure, talk to the lifeguards. They're happy to talk to you and tell you what's going on. Look for the flags and make sure you know the rip current actions to take, because otherwise it can sometimes become dangerous. And at Hofstra University, we've been working on research to try to improve communication of warnings and hazards with virtual reality simulations and video games for hazards like hurricanes, rip currents, and flooding. And for example, I have a library and include this link somewhere. Basically, we have a little video game where you get put in a rip current, and in the game can see what to do, wait for help, or swim out of it, and it can be played on any computer. And we're also running a survey with it with the New York City grant, which helped fund the creation of this game. So either of these links, this is just the game, this is a survey about the game. This helps us improve our rip current outreach products and tools. So if you want to experience a rip current without actually swimming, you can play this little game on your computer. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. And right now, you might have heard we have, as of this is a Thursday, July 7th, tonight and tomorrow, Friday, we're going to have a tropical system. Tropical storm Elsa made landfall in Florida. It's coming up the coast. It's actually going to go right over the tri-state area late tonight, tomorrow. It's going to bring heavy rain, gusty winds, and rip currents. Oftentimes when there's a tropical storm approaching or even going well offshore, a hurricane, they often kick up the ocean and give us lots of rip currents. Now, I doubt there'll be many people at the beach tomorrow when it's going to be heavy rain, but if there are people at the beach, they need to be cognizant that there's going to be rip currents. Notice how there's these different messages we have here for the storm coming up. For example, the red shows the tropical storm warning. These are the counties of the tri-state region from the National Weather Service office. Notice the red here, southern Nassau County, including Oceanside and all of Suffolk County. There's a tropical storm warning, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There's also, it's kind of overlapped by the red, but there's the green here along the coast shows there's a rip current statement out. So tomorrow with the tropical storm, there's going to be more rip currents. Anyone who does go to the beach needs to watch out. And then finally, the red is above it, but also throughout Nassau County and New York City and areas north and west, there's a flash flood watch, which means you could have very quick flooding of small creeks and streams and even streets and urban areas, as you might expect when there's heavy rain. So what exactly is going to happen here with Elsa? Let me just switch gears here and share my browser to show you some info on Elsa. So first we have a short briefing from the National Weather Service as of this morning. Just wanted to highlight a couple things that they mentioned. It's coming northeast. It's going to track the mid-Atlantic states tonight and then over the tri-state coast tomorrow morning. There's going to be heavy rain, rough surf, rip currents, and some winds, especially in the eastern half of Long Island tonight, very late tonight into Friday morning. And I think, yeah, now let me just, there'll be a lot of rain. Here's a projected rain accumulation map. Notice here, 3 inches of rain in New York City, 2.6 in Queens, JFK, 1.86 in Farmingdale and the Nassau-Suffolk border, 2 inches or so for a lot of Nassau County. Less as you go east. So it's going to be more rain, Over Nassau and New York City, and especially north and west, less rain, Nassau County points east. But the worst winds, and that's why you have the flash flood watch there. Nassau, New York City, north and west, rip currents we've talked about. But the winds, it's going to be the opposite. The winds will be worse to the south and east. So the southern half of Nassau County, including Oceanside, all of Suffolk, and coastal Connecticut have a tropical storm warning, which means there could be tropical storm winds 30 to 40 miles per hour very late tonight, and then Friday morning looks to be the worst of the winds, and also some high seas. So if you live like right on the shore, South Shore, could be some minor flooding from the storm picking up some waves and surge. But fortunately, with the track of the storm sort of right over us, it's usually areas east that are worse. So more the east end of Long Island and eastern half of Suffolk County will have the worst surge and probably the worst winds as well. That's why you see the red for the entirety of Suffolk County. But even southern Nassau County, there is a tropical storm warning. So definitely scattered power outages are going to be possible. When you have 30, 40, 50 mile per hour winds over a few hours, you can get big tree limbs coming down. That can bring down power lines, it can damage homes, hit vehicles. So you want to be on the lookout. And certainly, I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's possible that there'll be some power outages, especially if you happen to live in a place where you get power outages a lot from these storms. I would sort of be ready, just be prepared just in case, because it is possible you lose power. Again, not likely, but possible. Another thing too is it's gonna be nasty, like especially Friday morning, late tonight into the first part of the morning, with the wind and also periods of very heavy rain, tropical downpours. So I would try to avoid travel if you can Friday morning, or if you do, just leave extra time, because there will be a period of some heavy rain and strong winds. And either one of those things, heavy rain or strong winds, can lead to more traffic backups and make it harder to drive. So definitely want to take that into account. Again, this is just sort of a classic sort of tropical storm impact on Long Island. So even if this one you're sort of missing or not going out at all, the next one will probably be similar to this as well. So these are just always sort of good tips. When you hear about tropical storm warning, you always want to expect power might go out, travel is going to be difficult. There's going to be either heavy rain falling from the sky or coastal flooding if you're near the shore. And you really want to just take that into mind when you're planning out your day. Very slight chance of tornadoes, probably unlikely, but could happen. High confidence it's going to happen, moderate confidence on the impact still. Not totally sure how bad like the winds and the is going to be. Here's the current advisory at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. It's a fairly weak tropical storm, 45 mile per hour winds. Basically, to be a hurricane, you need winds of 74 miles per hour. So we're well below hurricane strength, which is good. But maximum sustained winds, that means consistent winds of about 45 miles per hour. That is enough to bring down tree branches, which then can lead to issues. So still winds that are strong enough to have some impacts. It's moving pretty quickly, which is good. So especially east to the east, not a ton of rain because it's moving so quickly. Seems like Nassau County, but especially points north and west, is going to be the worst for the rain. So that's what's happening with it. Quick look, here's the track showing it's just going to come right over us. So here it is as of 2 p.m. Thursday. It's in central North Carolina. And then here's a track. Notice how it sort of goes right over Long Island, just offshore. So it'll probably pass over like the East End, Montauk, or just offshore. So that's hence the winds will be worse in the East End of Long Island. But with tropical systems, when they hit us, oftentimes the winds are worse to the east. The rain is worse to the west. So places to the west of where it is, like Nassau County and New York City, more rain. Places to the east end of Long Island, more wind. So everyone gets some different hazards. And all the shoreline is issues with rip currents, some minor coastal flooding. Here's a rainfall potential. So just like we showed, see the dark green, 2 to 4 inches of rain. That's covering Nassau County, New York City. Less out east, but still some 1 to 2 inches. And then the wind speed probability is basically how likely is it to get tropical storm wind at least 40 miles per hour, which again is enough to cause power outages, at least scattered power outages. Lower chances as you go north and west across the island, better chances south and east. So again, Suffolk County, southern Nassau, at least about a 40% chance of getting some 40 mile per hour plus winds. And again, that could lead to some power outages and some tree branches down. Here's an image I showed. Here's all the warnings and watches. Some thunderstorms now creating issues. And again, sort of a separate storm giving us some storms Thursday afternoon and evening. Then late Thursday night, early Friday morning, Elsa comes in, and that's going to bring us the heavy rain, possible flash flooding, so very quick forming floods, and strong winds, southern Nassau, Suffolk County. Here is on a satellite right now. This is from space, looking at the clouds in the atmosphere. See the swirl over North Carolina to North Carolina? That's Tropical Storm Elsa. Put the radar on. Oh, let's zoom out a little bit and then look at the radar. So again, here's Elsa, this big swirl over North Carolina. See the bright white clouds are big storm clouds. Notice, especially to the north and east side, lots of wind and rain. Let's go to the radar. Again, it's showing, especially north. Here's the middle of the storm right here. See this yellow and orange? That's the big precipitation associated with the storm, the heavy rain and thunderstorms. Notice how the most consistent rain is to the north and west of the storm center. To the east, you have sort of more isolated storms. So more wind on the eastern side, and you see the rain is to the north and west. That's sort of how it's going to look when it crosses tomorrow. Zoom, pan over to where we are. So again, here we are right now on Long Island. Some big storms popping up just north and west of New York City this afternoon. Some more storms popping up behind it. So eventually we'll get some isolated storms later this afternoon, tonight. Maybe then a bit of a break, but then again, here's Elsa coming up the coast, this big blob of yellow and orange here. That's heavy rain. That's making a beeline for us on Long Island. So again, a period of heavy rain late tonight, Friday morning, some strong winds as well. Then a break, but then you also see more storms back here in the Midwest. Could have another round of storms later in the day on Friday. More heavy rain, possible flooding and gusty winds. So overall, it's a very busy weather pattern. We've had lots of big storms this week already, and we got more to get through here later today, tonight, and tomorrow, before Saturday finally quiets down. So that's what I have for today. Again, we talked about the rip currents and we talked about the current weather situation. If you have any questions about rip currents or the current forecast, feel free to come on chat or off mute if you're here live. And I did just want to mention, if you're watching this on recording, here's my contact info. Here's my email address. I'm also on Twitter, if you use social media. I'm happy to talk and answer questions over email while I know more about rip currents or tropical storms hitting Long Island or anything else about weather and climate.
Thank you, Jase. I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll take some questions.